Hey guys, happy Thursday. Happy first day of summer vacation to our city kids. Um, Welcome to my front porch. This might be a long one. So, if you would, really quickly with me, just take a deep breath in and let it go. And then, can you just kind of come out of this mental space with me and drop into the heart space? Because I want to talk a little bit about spiritual warfare because it is at an all-time high. We're sort of like fighting for the soul of humanity right now, and things are speeding up exponentially. This morning, the local sheriff put out a letter and said, we're tabling positions like 911 dispatchers and making budget cuts to public safety. And he said there will be negative implications. Now, that's true. And he also acknowledged that this is happening across the board, right? The other day I was talking about drones and about technology taking jobs. This is a very real agenda. And it is happening again very quickly, okay? So when I started asking about teaching peace and about creating spaces that were free for humans to just be human, people looked at me like I was insane. And this was probably a year or two pre-COVID. Now, if I could have told you COVID was coming in that many words, I would have told you because somehow something in me knew. The September before we went into COVID, I pulled my kids out of school and said, we're going to homeschool. I surrendered my vehicle in September of 2019 when my lease came up because Spirit told me, you don't want a payment right now. By February, we had been locked down. We were in full-blown COVID. Everyone was wearing masks. Everyone was panicking. And I really had to go back into my own tools that I had learned from not only when I was sick in 2015, but from when I was giving kids yoga in 2017, again, when I was working at Westminster, actually. You know, thank you, Jesus. Into like, how do I stay focused and calm? And how do I discern what is true and what's not? Right? So I had, thankfully, time to spend doing research on what COVID was, how the vaccines were going to work. And I stood my ground on this is not safe, this is not healthy. But the thing is that the spiritual warfare took so many things from me. I was told that I couldn't foster, despite having 2 extra bedrooms in my home, because I wouldn't take the jab. So not only did we rob kids of the mother that I am, but it took an opportunity away from myself and my kids. And when I started asking programs like, can I come and teach peace and teach these kids yoga and mindfulness, people told me no, because I refused to mask. I actually lost a job in July of 2020 because I refused to mask children at a kid's birthday party. And I was told that I don't love God because I wouldn't mask his children. And I thought, no, I'm honoring Jesus when I tell them that they have their own choices to make, okay? It is always a choice if you want to mask yourself or not. And it wasn't about the greater good. This whole game has been about manipulation and control. That is my truth, okay? So, recently, it's become very, very apparent that the warfare is getting deeper, and it's like blatantly obvious now, okay? The electric cars in these batteries are being made with child labor. Like, think about that. In other parts of the world, and I know that we don't think about other countries. Like, look at what's happening in Gaza. How far removed are we in our everyday lives from that kind of suffering and hunger and warfare? We don't see that here. Okay, so when I ask you to go into like the depths of Africa and where you have kids cobalt mining just so they can have a meal, it's really removed, and I understand that, but we need to come back into that heart space as humans, and we need to start looking at those things, right? We need to start grasping those things a little bit more clearly. Our electric grid can't handle this right now, okay? It can't. So that was a little off topic, but coming back to where I was with being like mindful and opportunity, yes, we need law enforcement positions. I'm not going to say that we don't. But one of the reasons that I want people to be peaceful and to start to understand varying perspectives is because our kids are going to come into this world, and there's going to be a lot more technology, and there's going to be a lot more division. For a while, this warfare isn't going anywhere unless we make it go away, okay? So we need to start understanding the divide between like the medicalization. We need balance. We need balance in our everyday activities, in things like, let's look at control. Let's look at control and public service, right? Things like seatbelt laws, helmet laws, the cars, especially self-driving, those are things that relinquish our human sovereignty. And we've been on this track where we've just made it okay. But the more we awaken to what's being really handed down, the more people are going to start to go, wait a minute, why is this not my choice, right? Why is it not your choice? Because when the drones are coming, and they start using more drones for law enforcement, there's not going to be any place that you're really going to have that's going to be sovereign space. If you're on your back deck with your old lady and you're out there smoking a blunt, okay, and the kids are sleeping, do you really want a drone in your private space knowing what you're doing? And some people will go, well, I don't care, they can watch me. But why are they watching? Why are we giving them that freedom and control? We were given this body and this earth to inhabit and live and learn. And there are a lot of us here because we have been fairly irresponsible in what we're bringing forth, right? So we're going to have to find spaces in community and in agreement, or even in acceptance and allowance. And that's why you're seeing a lot of the division around race. George Floyd was a false flag. And that is my truth, okay? You had two perfectly timed videos handed out a few weeks apart in a world of Snapchat and TikTok. There were a million other things about that were wrong. But that whole event was done for a reason, especially when he's going, I can't breathe. I would put money on the fact that that man was a sacrifice. The warfare with the drugs is extremely real. And there is money being made from the top down through our government systems to keep this in place. And it's a reason why there's such a push for the Narcan, okay? It's not about saving lives. It's about cyclical money. And I say that because I've been inside of rehab facilities. I've been to Helio Health. Okay, the first time I went to Helio in Syracuse, I walked in and I had tears in my eyes because the waiting room had 60-inch flat screen TVs. Maybe they weren't 60, but they were pretty big. And like 5G vending machines with the tap and go, right? And I looked around and went, man, our high school isn't this nice. If we don't start standing up, but we don't start seeking peaceful resolution, we're headed on a slippery slope, a very slippery slope. There is this idea that we have to meet violence with violence. And over the past few years, I've really been called a lot to forgiveness. Like when intellectual property has been stolen, or, monies were handed out to keep cycles in place, or I was told that I couldn't foster, or I was fired from a job for doing the right thing. And all I can say is that I'm sort of seeing it come full circle right now. Because while I knew that I was on the right track, there was a purpose, right? And it was because it was leading us to all this chaos that is coming right now. And again, I feel like it's just moving really quickly. The sheriff putting out that letter this morning let me know that we are headed in a way wrong direction, and they're looking at closing more New York State prisons, which is going to put a lot more people on the streets. So that means that not only do we have to start understanding how to, resolve our own disputes, how to not constantly be on the line to 911, how not to have our kids fall into this circus of drug use, and how to overcome our biases, right? Again, with the race, again, with, the gender identities and the sexuality, and with, well, this person was incarcerated. I know mad people that have been incarcerated, okay, and to be honest with you, our prisons and our jails aren't exactly on the track of rehabilitation. Like, yeah, there's a couple classes you can take in our local jail, but all you get for recreation is a basketball and a tablet. And there's the technology again. When all the prisoners have tablets and they can get on YouTube and they can gain information, but they can't go outside and put their feet in the grass, that's a problem. Okay, that's actually when you take nature away from people and you cage them like animals, then that's what you get. You get animals, right? Is there a reason for that? Do we think that it's punishment? Because we know the corporal punishment doesn't work, and we know it doesn't work with our children. We know that the scared straight state programming, right? We know that the scared straight program actually promotes childhood violence and recidivism and chaos. That's a fact. You can go and look that up. We know it doesn't work. Just like we knew 2 years after the implementation of the DARE program it didn't work, but they kept throwing money at it because they had to say they were doing something. Showing kids drug paraphernalia in the 5th grade? God, I remember coming through that program. I think we were like the second year that came through that program. How many kids do I know that were smoking weed by the time they were 15 years old? And a lot of it was because they were unafraid of it, because now they knew what all those things were, right? And that's a dangerous place to be, because the truth about heroin is, once you do it, you're not undoing that. It goes to your brain, and your body's like, oh. And that's with any chemical that you put in your body. You're shifting every single chemical balance within your system, okay? And it doesn't matter if it's caffeine, if it's heroin, if it's, whatever it is. Since I'm speaking my truth right now, I'm gonna throw this out there. I don't know anyone that has ever recovered from heroin addiction. I know a lot of people that are addicted to their recovery. People who are out there plastering Narcan boxes. People who are out there completely involved in way too many people's lives and in way too many AA and NA groups and putting themselves out there because they become addicted to that recovery. Because if they don't, then they know that addiction is going to manifest elsewhere in their life, or they're going to go back. And I have friends that have gone 5, 6, 8 years and gone right back. And as soon as they go back, they die. And it sucks. Okay, it sucks. Some of these people I love dearly. And people say to me, well, drug addiction isn't a choice. Well, if you never put this thing in your body, then you never have to worry about being addicted to it. Which is why it's crazy that we push alcohol the way that we do, because we've just normalized it. And then we have a nation of alcoholics, right? We have to start making better choices for ourselves and for our society collectively, right? So when you're making better choices for yourself, those things ripple outwards. But kids, especially kids under the age of like 7 or 8, when they're in that theta brainwave state, anything that happens around them within their home or to them is happening directly to them. They don't have a 3D world perspective to understand that, well, my mom hits me when she's mad at me, but Johnny's mom doesn't hit him. They don't see that. They can't separate that to understand that there's another way, which is why a lot of these kids grow up to be abusers, or they grow up to abuse their kids, because it's what they learned. And it is so hard to overcome that. It's so hard. Everything that we do in this life runs in the infinity loop, right? Light and dark, as above, so below. And that's why the warfare is so real, because right now we're on this like pendulum swing in society of the control and the manipulation and the electric and all of the technology. And then there's the other side that's really fighting for the light to like, let's come back to like sacred plant medicines. Let's come back to peace. Let's come back to just coexisting. And it's really right now it's a tight walk between the light and the dark. And I know that you guys are feeling it, and if you're not, you're going to start feeling it even more. So please start looking at what you really believe. And if you have biases against people of a different race, of people of a different sexuality, of, people who have been incarcerated, or even just your neighbor who listens to his music too loud, start looking at why that is. Because a lot of times our biases are learned behaviors. Actually, like, that's just the truth of it. It's learned behaviors. If you're a racist, it's usually because your dad was and your granddad was, right? And those things get handed down. And again, we just talked about how abuse cycles. So we need to start really introspecting and saying, okay, where can I find peace? Because when the peacemakers are being eliminated and those public safety positions are going away, the chaos of all of that everyone else's biases and everyone else's anger is going to create will be wild. Okay, we're talking revolutionary here. And I'm not saying that it's not necessary, but there is a peaceful road. There's always a path that is more advantageous to the group, right? So, anyways, that's a lot. But, yeah, I'm praying for us all, and certainly for peace. And all right. And can you do me a favor? Maybe this is why I'm here. Can you vote on things? Like, I'm genuinely curious as to what's taking precedence over this 911 position that the sheriff had to come out and be like, hey, I need y'all to help me out here. Okay. So we have to start really looking at what's being handed down, especially by government, because we've given away, again, all of our sovereignty. Okay. So, all right. I love you guys. It's been 20 minutes. I'll talk to you later.